Oh, Monsieur Anber,
Monsieur Cassavin.
you made it.
By the skin of my teeth, bro. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about being late. It was on an important call, so I'm sorry about that. Everything okay?
Doing very good. Both of us are wearing green for the St. Patty's Day week, I believe.
Yeah, I tried to, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see me okay? Can you see me okay?
See you just fine. See you just fine. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. For some of you know this, we're doing the podcast on the Instagram Live edition since a few weeks. And, of course, if you missed part of the conversation, it will be uploaded on the different platforms because we have a big topic to talk about, Russ. Are you still jet lagged from the big fight over the weekend?
Yeah, I think so. I got some sleep. I got some sleep last night. But even though you come back and you get some sleep, you're basically recovering from a week of jet lag that you're over there, that you didn't get the quality of sleep that you need to get in, trying to get acclimatized. And going east is always very difficult on the body and getting into the right time zone, and that's difficult. So it'll take a couple of days. Coming west is always easier. The jet lag is never as bad, but it was a very emotional night, which took a lot out of everybody, including myself, and it was tough.
Yeah, if people aren't sure what we're talking about, it's of course the Leigh Wood Conlan fight in Nottingham over the weekend. Stole all the boxing headlines. It was a big matchup going in, but it ended up being the fight of the year thus far in 2022, and there's a lot of time left, but it's certainly going to be a memorable evening. We have so many topics and aspects of the fight to get to, so if you have a comment, of course, let us know. But I would say first and foremost, for people who haven't had a chance to see the Leigh Wood Conlan fight, do yourself a favor and try to locate it if you have a DAZN subscription or otherwise, because it was definitely worth it. And Russ, I felt that there's some fights that you just have a feeling that on paper are going to match the excitement in the ring. And that was one of the events where you saw leading up to two guys, top 10 fighters in their primes, both featherweights and Leigh Wood and Conlan, in a hostile environment, in a frenzied crowd. Did you know at any point during the build up to that week that, listen, this is going to be a heck of a fight?
I'm not sure if I expected it to be. I didn't, like when we spoke about it in the interviews I did, I said this is not going to be a walk in the park. I knew it would be a tough fight, but I had a lot of faith in Conlan and what he could do, and in his abilities and in his mental strength, and how good he was and how he could perform. Something told me, so much so that I took a bet with the boys from Fighting Words podcast in the UK.
Right.
They were picking Woods, and I told them we're gonna shock you. It's gonna be a shock, and for all intents and purposes, that's what it turned out to be. And I spoke in various interviews, including maybe in the interview that I did with David Diamante on the Matchroom podcast, was that I've always loved being in the hostile environment. I've always loved being the visitor to somebody's territory, going back to the days of working with Otis Grant, winning the title on the road in Sheffield. I love being in Usyk's corner in the UK, when either be it against Bellew or, of course, the bigger fight against Joshua. I love being in Germany against Marco Huck. I love being in Russia against Gassiev. Being in that, there's always something special about winning on the road. And I thought, this is going to be just perfect. Everyone's going to be there to watch or to support, if you want Wood. But I just love the fact that you go in there and you silence that crowd. And, I thought it would be a great fight. Even in the fight, while it was going on, I'm so focused on doing what I want to do and doing everything I possibly can for the fighter to win. I don't get into the fan of the sport. I'm working, I'm watching, I'm dealing with my fighter and the situation at hand. And you don't realize how great an event it was and the atmosphere that it is until afterwards. The one thing I did notice, where we were sat in the corner, it was futile to be yelling anything, because just to get the attention of my fellow cornermen in the corner, I'd have to walk right up to them and scream in their ear what I wanted, because of how loud that place was. It's a smaller type arena, so it would be like the equivalent, let's say, of a Bell Center, but only with one tier and a lower roof, and the floor is full. It's impossible for the fighters to have heard us screaming instruction from the corner.
Is that the first time you were in that exact arena, or was it the same in Nottingham that you were as a commentator for the Bute-Froch fight and the Froch-Pascal fight in the corner?
I'm not sure about the arena. I tend to think that it was the same arena, although it was set up differently, same arena. But I know for a fact it was the same hotel, and this was something that was crazy. I walk into the hotel, and one of the people that are working at the hotel, he says, "Hey, nice to see you again." And I figured he must have me mistaken with somebody, or so he must have seen me. So I was, "Hey, how you doing? You know, nice." Yeah. And he stopped me afterwards, and he said, "You were here for the Bute-Froch fight. You stayed in this hotel." I said, "Yeah, that's right." I said, "You remember that?" He says, "I've been working here 18 years. I said, "You don't even look 18 years old." You know, and he remembered me from 10 years ago. He remembered me, that's nice. That was nice that they remembered that.
Right. But now, in terms of the hostile crowd, or just the crowd itself, and we'll get to the fight in a second here between Leigh Wood and Mick Conlan from this past weekend, where would you rank it in terms of how loud it was? Because you said when Mick Conlan fought in Belfast in front of his home crowd, that might have been one of the loudest arenas you've been a part of.
But it wasn't an arena. It was an outdoor venue.
Right.
There's a lot different noise when you're in a cement building with a low roof than an open air in the park type fight. Okay, completely different. So the decibel levels in there were unbelievable. Like, that's how loud it was. You literally, like, if I needed to scream to Adam Booth or Charlie or Huzaifa in the corner with us, when I yelled, I had to go right up to them and touch them and yell at them so they could hear me. And I'm this far as I am from me to you to the screen. You know, it was really loud.
So Conlan goes up to 126 after doing a brief stint at 122. And as far as, you know, like during the build-up to the week, did you feel like this is a fight that Conlan has an excellent chance of pulling the upset because of the fact that the weight would be different for him?
He was strong. He was relaxed. He was in a good mood. The whole time we were there, he wasn't struggling with weight. I had seen him when he was struggling to make 22, you know, how bad a mood he was in. And it was hard for him to take off those extra pounds. But this time, like, you wouldn't have known that he was even doing any kind of a weight cut or anything. His face looked good. His lips were good. Like, there was no problem. And I think that was evident at the weigh-in. You know, you could see the energy that he had at the weigh-in, which he did not have before, and he had that energy at the weigh-in. So making 26 was a great weight for him.
So how much did you know about Leigh Wood prior to this fight?
Well, I had seen his fight with Shukan. You know, I had watched that intently because it was on the zone. I had watched that, and you know, I knew the history of where he had come from. You know, his struggles on the way up to get where he was, and you know. It goes to show, you know, that, and I think his experience showed in the fight as well. He has like something like 27 professional fights in total. So he's experienced. He's been in there. He's plied his trade, and you know, had a convincing and, you know, exciting and win over Shukan, who's considered very good, and became champion. And you know, when you win a title, you know, automatically that makes you 25% better. And you know, he certainly looked the part. But Conlan, I think people were underestimating what Conlan could do, and I think he surprised a lot of people in the way he performed.
So where do you want to start off first? Like, have you rewatched the fight? How many times have you rewatched that fight since it happened Saturday?
I only watched segments, the highlight packages that were put together. So I have not watched it because I lived it. So I have not watched it.
Right.
It's very tough when, especially if Eddie won, it would have been great to watch because, you know, then you would rejoice in the celebration afterwards. But knowing what happened at the end of the fight, I told somebody, I think it was today or yesterday, I said, at the end of round 10, I was so excited to have been involved in one of the greatest nights of my life. You know, in boxing, you know, I thought I was getting ready to celebrate, you know, how good this was going to be. And, you know, less than 2 rounds later, it turned out to be one of my worst nights of my career. And, you know, the definite terrible moment for me and for the whole team.
Okay, well, we'll get to that in a second, but let's live it kind of round by round for those of you who missed the Mick Conlan Leigh Wood fight this past Saturday for the featherweight title, and Russ was in the corner for Mick Conlan, and you've been in the corner for Mick for how many fights now of his pro career? We know about his illustrious amateur career, but in the pros? When did you get the call to work with Mick?
I think I started work. I'd have to look at the record. I know exactly what fight it was, but I haven't counted it. I haven't counted it, but
Right.
I think it was would have been somewhere around his, I want to take a guess at 7th pro fight, 8th pro fight, somewhere in that vicinity. So I've been with him for that long. There's only one fight that I missed, which was in the UK during the pandemic when they weren't allowed to bring in outsiders, and boxing the promoter would have to provide a in-house cut man. So I didn't make that fight, but for every other fight I've been there.
Okay, and Conlan in the first round lands a overhand left to Leigh Wood that we think, okay, this is going to be a first round unbelievable knockout, because Leigh Wood gets up, but is on really unsteady legs. And on what happens a lot of times, did you think at all that Leigh Wood was maybe not warmed up enough and was a little too dry, or did you just think it was a perfect shot at the perfect time by Conlan? Probably
a combination of both. I think that Leigh Wood might not have expected that kind of firepower. And again, that's something else I said in the lead up to the fight, is that Conlan's power is underestimated. You know, he has underestimated power. He might not be better Biev, but he certainly can punch to keep it respectable. And obviously there's no doubt that there was, he was saved by the bell, if you will, in the first round, because it happened right at the end of the round. But then he gets hit again in the second, and he's shaken again. And I'm thinking, that's 2 good shots that have landed. Twice he's been shaken, and we're going to get this guy out of there. I thought in the corner it's going to end up going in the second round. But, credit to Leigh Wood. I mean, he showed a lot of heart and a lot of resilience, because he took some bombs. He took some shots to the body so hard that there were times where he was covering up his body to not get hit, and he was willingly taking shots to the chin to cover up his body. So full credit for the heart that he showed in staying in there. But it really looked like this could be over early.
Was there any concern, because Conlan in the early rounds was so confident about landing that power shot and hurting Wood a few times? Was there any concern that Conlan was maybe punching himself out? Because we've seen that before in fights where a guy gets his opponent hurt early and tries to maybe finish the job and unload, and he's got the crowd, in this case, was loud, even though it was in Nottingham. There's a ton of Irish supporters as well, and just overall people kind of living the moment and enjoying a great fight. Were you concerned at all that he was punching himself out?
I wouldn't say I was concerned, but I think it changed the tactic of the fight. Adam Booth alluded to that after the fact when we were back at the hotel, that he said, not that I would have changed anything differently, but it changed what we expected to do. You had to do what you were going, what happened, put more punches together, because that's the opportunity that presented itself. You couldn't just walk away from that. But that's something that experience also teaches you when hurting a guy. It only took, when he knocked him down, it was one shot that he wasn't looking, just boxing, boom, planning, setting traps, like they say, and landed a shot. And after he had him hurt, that kind of abandoned, and he just went for it, just wanted to land anything after that instead of setting the same traps again. But that's no matter how much you try to tell fighters or what it's like in the ring, that's something that even when you work on it, the years of practice and being in the ring, and having number of fights teach you how to finish somebody, and you could look at a lot of fighters and the way they knock guys out earlier in their career, or the way they knock guys out later in their career. Now, obviously, later in the career, they're fighting better guys, but there's a way that you go about it that ends it where you're a cold, calculated assassin, and you just end it, in a way that instead of just throwing caution to the wind. And that's something that only experience can teach you. But like Adam said, Adam Booth said, not that we would have done it different. He was very emphatic about that. But you did things that we were forced to do that we really wasn't part of the game plan, as a result of being able to hurt Wood and knock him down. So, it's what it is. I didn't think at any time in the fight that he's punching himself out. I never thought that at all.
Okay, so at what point, though, did you see, okay, the tide is not necessarily turning, but Leigh Wood isn't going away this easily, and he's actually coming forward and has power of his own, and this is turning into a different type of fight? Like, do you remember the moment where you said, okay, we might have to rethink that this guy's going to go down from a straight left hand here?
I don't remember at what round, but I leaned in and said to Adam, he's starting to throw only singles now. And he was throwing one punch at a time, and he was spending more time on the ropes.
Conlan,
and that's Conlan. And that's when I started in the corner of saying, stay off the ropes, stay off the ropes. You know, I thought that was getting to be a little dangerous because, and we talked about this after the fight as well, in that he'd be on the ropes, but it wasn't like, and I mentioned this to him afterwards, it wasn't like he was going to the ropes and setting a trap, you know, to do something. He was going to the ropes to defend, you know, using the ropes as support to defend. And, you know, that could be good, you know, that could work sometimes. Yeah. But you keep going to that time and time again, it could get dangerous, you know? And so that's when I noticed that he was taking a little, and Adam was telling him that in the corner, you know, don't spend too much time, you know, don't spend too much time there, you know, don't stay there. You're blocking, it's good, but, you know, don't stay there. And I would have liked to see him get out or spin the guy or do something on the ropes instead of just practice your defensive abilities.
There's also, early in the fight, even if Conlan was ahead, there's a cut. And, of course, you're there for the cuts. That's your main role. And it seems like a lot of these big fights of late, you have to deal with a big cut, whether it was Loma a few fights ago, and you weren't in the corner of Arthur, but Arthur had the huge cut, of course, in his fight against Marcus Brown, and you've been involved in several of the big cuts of late. So did you notice how it was? It looked like it happened due to a punch. Do you remember if the referee ruled it a headbutt at all during the fight?
I believe he ruled it a headbutt. But I remember vividly Charlie Beat and Huzaifa's face when they looked at me. Russ, he's cut. I remember, like, they were kind of like away from me on the other side of the corner. I'm on one side of the corner, and the way they look, he's cut. I was, what? And I look up, and there's blood streaming down his face. So that's when I got my things out and got to work right away on the cut. And touch wood, it wasn't an issue in the fight. You know, we were Adam wanted me to go in the ring. I said, no, I think I can handle this one from the outside. So I let Adam continue to be the main focus in the corner, so that, you know, Mick could focus on him. And then I worked the cut from the outside, and it really never became a factor in the fight. As a matter of fact, I think, except for the end of maybe the fourth round, for some reason, nothing in the third, but maybe the fourth round, there was a trickle down the side. And that was the last time it ever bled. Like, it got to the point where he was coming back to the corner, and I wasn't even bothering with it. Like, I wasn't aggravating it. It was clotting on its own, and I just covered it with Vaseline, and I didn't have to do anything to it. There was no blood.
Can you explain it a little bit, though? People, the cut principle is not that difficult when you think about it in terms of what you have to do. But you're in a hostile crowd in front with the main event, championship fight. You know, everybody's looking at you at the moment. Isn't that where really the difference is dealing with that minute to not screw up and kind of calm your nerves into making sure the cut is tended to?
Yeah, I think that's you know, with that, even with instructions, even as a coach, you know, sometimes in a gym, you could have guys who give instructions and show you how to do things. But then when you have to do it under pressure, you know, in the heat of the moment and do it right, I think that's what becomes, because basically you've got less than, even though it's a minute's rest, you've got probably 45. less than 50 seconds to tend to it, you know? So it's, yeah, you have to do it, and you want to make sure you get it right. You want to do all the things that you know how to do. You want to make sure to get it right and do it. And like I said, touch wood, I was able to get that shut, and it worked well.
So the turning point, a lot of people feel, is in the later stages of the fight. Leigh Wood appears to be going to, you know, in his mind, just win by knockout or have something big score, because he's probably down on the scorecards, and he was officially, even though he was in Nottingham. So we get to the referee ruling it a knockdown in the 11th round for that slip in the corner that wasn't evident to see. Clearly, Leigh Wood threw a punch, but we talk about this all the time about it's not, even if there's a punch thrown, does the punch really cause a knockdown? You got to look at because if it's a slip at the same time, then you have to rule it a slip. And that made, you know, a huge turning point, because now Leigh Wood went from a 10-9 round to a 10-8 round on a questionable knockdown. And it seemed like you lost your mind, Adam Booth. Both of you guys lost your mind in the corner when the referee brought Conlan back. So what do you want to touch on for that knockdown?
Horrific call. You know, it was criminal, really, to make that kind of call, and criminal for Steve Gray to have done that. Everybody saw that it was a slip. The television commentators, Tony Bellew jumps up and was saying it's a slip. Everybody saw that it was a slip. Everybody, like there was no doubt about it. What was a 10-9 round for Conlan? Now you awarded the same score. All three judges, instead of taking for their own, letting their own eyes see what they saw, they just like three blind mice. Oh, referee said it's a knockdown. So that goes from a 10-9 round for Conlan to a 10-8 round on one punch. And that just shows how criminal that decision was, because now you have scored the 11th round for Leigh Wood, the same score you gave to Conlan in the first round on a round he won and landed a vicious knockdown. A vicious shot to knock Wood down. That was a merited 10-8 round. You just gave those two rounds equal. And Conlan jumps up right away, shaking his hand. He said, no, I slipped. And the referee just continues counting. You know, that was just a horrific call. And my stomach went at that point. Like my heart just sunk when that happened. And Adam went crazy and we were yelling at the ref. And it was just a horrific call. You know, I can't begin to tell you the profanity that Adam was yelling at the ref, and it was just an awful call to have made. Had the referee just done what he's supposed to do and just cross his arms, say no knockdown, pick him up, wipe his gloves, say box, the round ends, nobody is the worse for wear. You know, that's just the way it goes. But now you do that and you change the course of the fight by 3 points, and that's something I'll go to my grave knowing that was the wrong thing to do. That was a wrong call to make. That should never have happened.
What did you make of Steve Gray during the fight? As he intervened a lot in terms of the sloppiness at times between Conlan and Wood and the clinches. There was, you know, arguments a few weeks ago when Josh Taylor fought Catterall. I think that was probably even more of a, you know, a lot more intervention and clinches and stuff than what Steve Gray had to deal with Conlan and Wood. But did you think overall he was doing an okay job up until that point?
Yeah, I can't say that I could pick out anything in particular. The one thing, although I don't know how much of a difference this makes, but certainly in what I explained to you earlier about the volume, that was the decibel levels that were in there. Leigh Wood's corner, Ben Davidson, was sat on the ring apron, not on the steps, not on a stool, was sat on the ring apron with his head inside the ring and his arm inside the ring, you know, yelling instruction, pointing at his fighter where to go, what to do. And when I turned to our inspector in our corner and said, "Look what this guy's doing over there. He's sitting on the ring." Guy says, "I can't do anything about it. That's their call." I said, "Well, why don't you go send someone over to tell them to do something?" "No, that's none of my business. They have inspectors over there." So I thought, if anything, you know,
you and the British Boxing Board always go really well, huh?
You know, it's crazy, and Steve should have seen that. He was in the ring. He should have seen that. If I didn't have the cut to tend to, you know, I certainly would have gone and pointed it out to him that the guy is hanging inside the ring and shouldn't be there. That bothered me a lot. Did it change the outcome of the fight? No, but it bothered me a lot that he was allowed to do that and get away with doing that. So overall, I'm not sure that I could say Steve did anything wrong except for that knockdown, which was massive. At one point, he came to our corner and wiped off a little dab of grease onto his finger from Conlan's eye, from the corner of Conlan's eye. And he put his hand out to me. So I took it back off him and put it back on. Like he was complaining that as if that it was a tiniest amount of Vaseline that he took off his eye. And yet when Leigh Wood came out the corner, he had a big blob of Vaseline right in the middle, and he never said anything about that, you know? So I don't know. I just think that the call was just horrific that he made in the 11th round, and you know, very unfair. And just the wrong call. This business, like this business where, and I've had people say, "Oh, well, you know, he got touched when he went down," but it doesn't matter if he got touched. Like you don't do it backwards. You don't say, "Oh, the guy is slipping, but because you touched him, we're scoring a knockdown." No, it's the other way around. You're slipping. Did you slip because of the punch? Did you slip? Would that punch have knocked you down if you didn't slip? If the answer is no, then it's not a knockdown. It's simple as that. It's not the other way around. It's not like you're slipping and the guy touches you at the same time and, oh, you touched him at the same time he was going down. It's a knockdown. It's not the way it works. You know, and anyone who says that is just subscribing to the wrong theory. It does not work that way. And that's what bothers me about it the most. You know, it was clear to everybody that that was a slip. It wasn't a knockdown. He didn't get shook, nothing. There was no rotation of his head, nothing. He got touched, yeah, but he was already slipping by the time that happened. So that was just criminal, that 11th round. That was just criminal.
What do you guys say in the corner now between the 11th and the 12th? Knowing that they officially ruled it a knockdown, do you think, all right, this could be up for grabs in the 12th? What's the, like, I don't know how much you were able to talk, or what did Adam say?
Look, I don't remember what Adam said. You know, Adam was talking to, we were yelling at the referee. You know, I don't remember what Adam said. All I remember is me saying, you need this round. That was the last thing I said, you know, was you need this round. But I think that's something that you would say to anybody involved in a close fight, you know, regardless, you know, you would say you need this round. So you wouldn't say coast, you know, I just wanted to make sure he understood the importance of the round and that he had to go out there and continue to work, you know, and do his thing and fight the way he was fighting, the way he was winning the rounds.
And on the official scorecards, if he lost the 12th round, let's say 10-9, it would have ended up being a split draw. Two judges had Conlan ahead only by a point. One judge had Conlan ahead, I believe, by 3 points. So he would have been okay on one scorecard. So, yeah, he needed the round, and then he stayed on the ropes, maybe one times too many. And we're watching the fight, the fans and the crowd's going crazy for Leigh Wood making a comeback, and it looks like at some point it wasn't clear with the TV angle if Conlan got hit by a punch or if he just fatigued, his body went out. But once we saw the replay, it looks like a straight right hand to the temple, followed by a few flurries, and Conlan is out of the ropes, and he falls into the arms of his brother, Jamie. Did you see the knockout? Like, what was your reaction?
All I saw him was go through the ropes. So I'm waiting for them, you know, to start counting for him to walk back into the ring, and suddenly the referee is waving frantically. I did not see the punch that landed because Leigh Wood was blocking my view. I couldn't see it from my perspective, I couldn't see it. When I watched it again, I saw why the punch was so damaging, and it's because Conlan was in the southpaw stance, and when he bent this way, he took the right hand straight on this side of the face. Yeah. There was no room for absorption of the shot. He was already there. You know, it's not like when you're a right-hander and you bend away with the punch coming at you, you can kind of roll with it. This one was locked in, like he bent into a locked-in position. So the body was never able to react with the punch. He had been hit with some bigger shots in the fight and didn't get hurt. It's just the way he bent at the same time that Wood threw the shot, and it landed in that awkward way. And whenever you see fights where a fighter gets hit, especially when you have two orthodox fighters or two southpaws, and they get hit on the wrong side of the face, that's when knockouts, you know, become even more dangerous, you know. But the thing that pissed me off in that was, you know, how bad the ropes were. Like, there is absolutely no way that Conlan, just his weight, you know, you have rope spacers, you have the rope. There is no way he should have been able to cause the rope to open up so much and fall out of the ring the way he did.
Isn't it something, though, you've brought up a few times when Hopkins went out against Joe Smith and other fights, how they're neglecting the tightness of the ropes lately?
Not only are they neglecting to do that, they're neglecting to provide a safety area around the ring, which would only mean just have some tables there. You know, all you need to do is have tables all around the ring, which would at least cause a fighter, if he fell, to only fall on a table, you know, before someone could catch him or do something. Instead, you're just in a big hole of 4 feet down onto a cement floor. And there's no way you go out of the ring any other way but head first. You never go out feet first. It's impossible. You can't go out feet first and slide down onto the floor. If you're going out of the ring, you're going out head first, and it's going to be your head that either forward or backwards, but it's head first that you're headed down. And that a fighter should be going through into a cement floor from 4 feet up in the air onto a cement floor is criminal. It's criminal. And I don't understand why the commissions don't enforce that and are stricter about the security around the ring and what would happen in the event a fighter was to fall out of the ring, as in this case. Let's say there wasn't a knockout. Let's say this would have been a shot that he caught on the shoulder and sat on the ropes when he absorbed it, and then the ropes give way and out he goes. Imagine what would have happened then if he would have got knocked out when he hit the floor.
But theoretically, if he's not knocked out, he gets 20 seconds to get back in the ring.
Yeah, but what if he's injured?
Well, no, I know.
But you're talking about that being part of the thing of if you get knocked out of the ring as if it's fair game. If you get knocked out of the ring, you have so many seconds to get back in. Okay, but if that's part of your rule process that says if you get knocked out of the ring, which could happen, but you get knocked out of the ring, okay. But if that's important enough to determine that there's a rule that says you have 20 seconds to get back in,
yeah, you should.
How is there not a rule to have the safety issues around that you don't have a 4-foot drop to a cement floor?
Look, at that part, I can't argue. But is this something you try to bring up with the commissions at all? You get a chance? Because, I mean, it could have been dangerous. Now, do you know what happened to Conlan? Did he land? Or was he caught by his brother?
There was a security guy nearby. And I'll tell you another dangerous point. Had Conlan, who was in the southpaw stance or left side, had he been about 12 inches over to his left when he fell, he would have fallen right on the edge of the steel stairs that were in that corner, which could have even been more dangerous. If he hit his head on the steel stairs going back, if he hits his back on the edge of the steel stairs, who knows what damage that could have done. And there was a security guard who looked like he kind of deflected him a little bit, and then Jamie and his father kind of grabbed him. So he landed on the floor, but not with full impact. There was some resistance. So I don't think he suffered any injury as a result of the fall, luckily, because there was somebody there. So you either put tables there or you put people there, but you got to do something. But I remember specifically in the Bernard Hopkins-Joe Smith fight, and the replay was shown numerous times, when Hopkins goes out of the ring because the ropes give way, there's a photographer who leans back like this to give Hopkins a clear path all the way to the floor. Like he doesn't even try to stop him. He lets him go all the way down to the floor. And that shouldn't be happening. These are things that should be taken into consideration. We worry so much about all the things we want to take care of and the safety rules of the fighters, blah, 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 blah. And you bring inspectors in the corner and you're watching this and watching that. And Vaseline. The guy took off this much, where's my finger? This much Vaseline off his eye, off the eye. You're worried about the Vaseline, but you're not worried about an open space in the ring with ropes that are so loose that just by a featherweight sitting on them, he collapsed the ropes and was able to go right through them. It's not right. Not right.
No, absolutely not. No. When did you know that Conlan had lost the fight officially? Did you notice right away the referee, like people were tending towards him? And
yeah, as soon as the ref waved his arms, we all just made a mad dash to the ring. Charlie and Huzaifa and Adam were up. They went in through the ring. I walked along the side of the apron to get to that side. And, by the time I got there, look at Conlan, and he was reacting right away. Like he was reacting. The doctor was trying to put a mask on him. He would take it off, which I understand.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because he was conscious, and the doctor saying, you got to keep it on. He's taking it off. Now, this is after fighting 12 rounds. He's breathing. He's pumping like there's no tomorrow, like the amount of oxygen you want to breathe. And you put a plastic cover over your face. There's no way, even with us now wearing the medical masks, it bothers you, So, and he's pulling it off, and they're putting it on. He's taking it off, because he wants to breathe. And then they're hovering all over him. So at one point, I pushed the doctor back, and I said, give him space to breathe. You guys are all on top of him. Clear the area. Let him breathe. He's reacting. He's reacting. So, I think they made it out a little worse than they should have. The paramedics they just wanted to grab him like he was a piece of meat and put him on the stretcher and get him out. Like they weren't doing what I thought was proper protocol and procedure. If you are dealing with a head injury, of let's see if he recovers, if he comes to, let's see before right away you start. And then when you want to move him, move him. If he was out cold completely and just lifeless, no problem. Get him out. But that wasn't the case. He was taking the mask off. He knew exactly what he was doing.
So we didn't even know this. Like when you were watching the DAZN broadcast, you're thinking that Conlan is unconscious all the way to the locker room and leaving, with the paramedics, and had no idea. It only came a bit later that there was official report that he was conscious and okay. And Leigh Wood, did you get a chance to hear him? Because he was professional in dealing with the biggest win of his career, a huge comeback win by knockout. And he was gracious in victory, saying, let's see what happens with Conlan here. All attention goes to him. So that was a class act by Leigh Wood.
Yeah, he handled that very well at first. You know, he was excited, he won, but then when he saw the gravity of the situation, that's when he just say, you know, everybody calm down. He was telling the crowd to calm down, you know, and
Right.
you know, he
Yeah,
handled
as
that.
the Instagram follower here, Josie Connolly points out. So Leigh Wood was trying to, and that's something that you got to give him credit, because there was a lot of back and forth between Conlan and Wood the entire week. A lot of trash talk. Wood could have been a bit more cheap about it, in a sense, if you will, and brag about the fact that he had just won by knockout. But I thought that was good sportsmanship on his part. And at what point did you go back in the locker room and know that Conlan was okay and everything was okay?
Well, I didn't. We followed Conlan out to where the ambulance was going to take him. We cut the gloves off. You know, I wiped him. I put the cold towel. I wiped him, wiped his face, you know, and he was reactive. His eyes were open. Everything was fine. And then they took him to the hospital. Adam went with him. And then I think Huzaifa might have gone as well. And me and Charlie went back to the dressing room, gathered up all the stuff. And then we went back to the hotel and waited for him to return from the hospital.
All right. So what do you make of all of this now? Do you want to see a rematch? Are you gutted by the knockdown ruling and the referee, how it ended up changing?
Well, look, the thing that stays with me on this is always going to be, you know, Steve Gray's call for that knockdown. You know, that's I think that was just it was almost like the malocchio. You know, that was almost the evil eye, the curse that he put on Conlan. That's how I felt. You know, that it was all designed that was going to happen, you know, because he did that. And he took a fight which, you know, you were talking about the scores going into the last round where you said Conlan was ahead by 1 point on 2 judges' cards. He would have been ahead by 3 points on 2 judges' cards and 6 on the other had he won the 11th round like he should have, 10-9, you know, and at that point you're more comfortable. Wood doesn't have that air of confidence about him, you know, it being a knockdown. Conlan is not frustrated by just having lost a point for no reason. You know, he lost not 1 point, lost 3 points because he was winning the round 10-9. Right. Now he loses 10-8. That's a 3-point swing. So, you know, all these things came in factor. And I think that was the Steve Gray malocchio, the evil eye that he put on him. And, you know, that's going to stay with me the rest of my life that happened. That was completely uncalled for and unfair. And should there be a rematch, Matthew? We've seen rematches in fights that weren't even worthy of rematches. And, you know, I think this one definitely deserves a rematch. I think this could sell out. I think this fight could sell out a soccer stadium in the UK.
Yeah, we'll love to see. I mean, I don't know what the plans are. Conlan seems to be wanting to fight immediately. Will Leigh Wood accept a rematch, even though he theoretically doesn't owe Conlan a rematch? I think it would be such a huge money fight. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. Did you get a chance to talk to anybody from the Conlan camp or another Conlan camp, but the Leigh Wood camp, or from Eddie Hearn or anybody like that after the bout?
I did not. And I know I've been avoiding the comments all the way through since we started talking, which I don't know how many minutes it's been that we've been on. But
we have a few left here. Yeah.
When Daya Ali says hello to Russ, that means a lot to me because his father was one of the reasons I got into boxing. He was my childhood hero as a fighter, Howard Davis, when he won gold in Montreal. So my connection to boxing is directly related to Howard Davis, and now through his son, Daya Ali. So I just wanted to say hi to Daya.
Very cool. Very cool. So, yeah, so go ahead.
Yeah, look, I didn't talk to anybody, so I don't know. But obviously, Conlan the following day tweeted he wants the rematch again. And how, you know, this has everything on the table that merits a rematch. You know, this has everything that merits a rematch. You have a guy who's ahead, who gets stopped, who gets a controversial call in the 11th round, who gets cut in the 2nd round. I mean, it's just there. Like I said, there have been fights that if this fight is not worthy of a rematch, there is no fight in boxing history that's been worthy of a rematch. So, you know, there has to be a rematch. And again, it comes down to, you know, what money can you make? How viable can it be? How can you capitalize on this? What better buildup can you have than to have this type of rematch of Conlan versus Leigh Wood again? Even if it's anywhere in Nottingham in a soccer stadium, they would fill the place. This was, you know, you said earlier, it's a candidate for a fight of the year. Matthew, what's going to have to be the fight Imagine what the fight will have to be like to beat it out for Fight of the Year.
No, it's going to be difficult. It would have to be, a lot of times Fight of the Year is also given to a fight that has high prestige going in, right? Like that's one of the reasons Fury Wilder ended up also being Fight of the Year. It was a great fight, but they tend to favor bigger marquee matchups. So if you have a big time fight between two maybe more known fighters, because let's not forget Mick Conlan and Leigh Wood, huge fight in the UK, huge fight for boxing fans. But for your casual sports fan, it's rare that they'll tune in to 126-pounders involved in main title fights. It's a smaller group than if you had, for example, of course, a Fury fight against an Usyk of this world, and it ends up being a heck of a fight. So there's going to be other candidates possibly, but this one is one of the ones that, to get out of your seat in this day and age when you've seen thousands upon thousands of fights like I have and you have, Russ, like that one for sure is going to be a memorable event, and it's probably going to be a very difficult fight to beat out for best bout of the year.
And I'll disagree with you when we say about casual fans, because unfortunately sometimes in North America, and I guess it happens everywhere, but sometimes in North America, we get so myopic and we have our blinders on that we think only what happens here is important, and it determines what is casual and what is not casual. Well, Leigh Wood and Mick Conlan was for the casual as well as for the avid fight fan in the UK. You know, it was bigger than just a casual.
Okay, but not as many people are tuning in or even watching this bout after the fact that a Canelo fight is my point. You know, if Canelo Triple G fight a third time and ends up being a war, guarantee you much more people will have seen that bout, no matter how great Leigh Wood Mick Conlan was. That's what I meant.
I think you've probably got a big space in between Canelo and casual. You know, like I think there's a lot of room in there.
Casual fans in this day and age are not tuning into as much boxing as they were even 10 years ago, probably 15, 20, 25, forget it. So I'm saying you have less and less of the sports fan who just wants to tune into a few fights a year is not circling Leigh Wood, Mick Conlan, even though he should have by the entertainment value it brought.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you mean by casual. Yeah, I see what you're saying. The casual sports fan, but not the casual boxing fan. Because boxing fan is going to watch this and going to know about this. But, you know, this thing was like a movie script, right? Right. The underdog kid comes into the hometown, knocks down the hometown favorite and almost has him out in round one. Kid comes back, he's behind on points, he's losing. A referee makes a bad call, suddenly swings the fight, and then there's a dramatic sudden ending with one punch in which the fighter gets knocked out of the ring, you know, and onto the cement floor. You know, with 95 seconds left or whatever is the count, you know, and how that's like a movie script. Like, how could that not be a rematch?
All right. Okay, we got to wrap up here in a few minutes at the most. So I just want to throw in a word on ESPN Saturday. Big fight in New York City. Edgar Berlanga, who's looked at as one of the best prospects in terms of power, especially reminds me a little bit of his run in his early in his career when you had David Lemieux doing kind of the same thing in the middleweight division by knocking out a lot of his opposition. And he's going up against Steve Rolls, a Canadian fighter, somebody I had the pleasure of being in the corner with in December when he fought in Montreal. And you're going to have even Tony Lewis, that we know very well on the undercard, and one of the better prospects in boxing, and Xander Zayas will also be part of it. So it's a good top-rank event Saturday. Just a quick thought, Russ, on Edgar Berlanga and Steve Rolls, and just maybe a word on a guy that we know really well, Tony Lewis, who's involved in a big fight that's opening the broadcast.
Let's start with Tony first.
Yeah.
This is Tony's, I guess what you might want to call final kick at the can on this one. This is where he has to prove what he has believed all along, to be a world-class fighter. This is why he turned pro. This is what he's wanted to do. This is his opportunity. He's done it before where he's been on the so-called B side and has won. He needs to do it again and show that he belongs and can be a player in the division. He needs this win. There's nothing, he has to leave it all in there on Saturday night. This is a super important win. You know, a super important fight, I should say, to prove how good he can be. He needs to show how good he truly is. This is very, very important. And in the case for Berlanga and Rolls, obviously, you know, this is designed for Berlanga to shine and continue his knockout streak against a guy who has abilities in Steve Rolls. So Steve Rolls has to prove that he can hang in there with the super middleweights, because he's moving up as well from middleweight to super middleweight. So he has to prove he can hang with these guys and hang in there with a power puncher like Berlanga. That's going to be the key. Can he handle the power that's coming at him? And if so, he has to prove that he can be equally as strong and perform well to prove that he belongs. So this is a crossroads fight, really, for both Tony Lewis and for Steve Rolls. Both are on B side. Both are expected just to, you know, give the A side guy the experience they need to carry on. This is their opportunity where they have to kind of throw a
Play spoiler.
Yeah.
They can play the spoiler role on Saturday. So we'll be tuning in for that. Virgil Ortiz had a big fight. At least a stayed busy fight expected Saturday. One of the better welterweight contenders right now that's not a champion. He's very exciting when you look at him and Stanionis, Boots Ennis. Those are kind of the next up-and-coming welterweight stars. And he had to drop out a little bit earlier as we're recording this Tuesday evening for his fight due to medical conditions. So we hope he bounces back. And that's a bit scary. We saw Teofimo Lopez apparently going to the ring against Kambosos with a medical condition as well. They could have been dangerous. So listen, boxing is not an easy sport, and apparently what Ortiz had to pull out of is due to the dehydration process. He was losing way too much weight, and they found something in his blood that kind of alarms went off, and he's resting now, and the fight is off for him on Saturday. So we wish him a speedy recovery, and I look forward to seeing Ortiz back in the ring because in terms of power punching right now in boxing in the welterweight division, but with technique behind it, not many guys do it better than Virgil Ortiz.
You're right. And I also saw something else. I mean, I hope he's okay, but I don't know what was. I saw what they just, what the word, I can't even pronounce what the word was. And I was going to ask you what it was, but you kind of explained it now. But I also heard now that Munguia is out of the title elimination bout. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I think that's television purposes.
Yeah,
though,
because of
that, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so we listen. We'll touch on that next week because there's a few different storylines about how you said broadcasting now that the zone enforcing Eric Munguia. You can't go on PBC or Showtime pay-per-view to fight Charlo, even though it was their right to do so. So listen, there's going to be some good stuff in the next coming weeks for sure. For those of you who missed the conversation, the recap of the fight of the year so far, Leigh Wood, McCollin, with Russ having once again a front row seat to it, one of the better seats in the house, and an unfortunate end to that fight if you're a Conlan fan or you're in the Conlan corner, but a heck of a bout. Please do a good job. I'm saying please do yourself a favor and try to tune into the bout if you did miss it. And if you missed out on the podcast edition, will be available online, of course, on YouTube. And Zayas, any final words for the Calling Russ Anber live edition this evening?
You know, boxing has given me an opportunity to travel and meet and be with all kinds of different people and experience some great highs. And the great highs have always been fantastic, and you enjoy them and you absorb them. But man, when defeat happens in that way, there's nothing more gut-wrenching. Like, I cannot begin to tell you for the brief fleeting moment that it happened, how much I hated boxing after the fight Saturday night, how much I hated what happened in that ring, everything that happened from the referee's call to falling through the ropes, to the attendants attending to Mick after the fight. Like, all that stuff just made me hate the things that are wrong with boxing. And it's crazy, man, how you can go through that wave of emotion from one side all the way to the other. And I wanted to be so proud of being a highlight of my career to have been there, you know, like it was for Joshua Usyk, like it was to be there for the Lomas fights, like it was to be there for, you know, the better BF's fights in Russia and all these. I wanted that to be highlights of my life, the Jean-Pascal Boutte fight, you know, like, and it became a moment that I hated and will hate for the rest of my life. And that's boxing.
Or would you say this ranks, like, do you have a few losses that stay in mind now that you brought it up, like in your career that you remember more than others? Like, what about Otis with Roy Jones when you had to throw in the towel, or did you not mind the way the fight went?
No, you know what? That's going to be a subject. Let's talk about that. But okay. I would say no, the Otis Grant one. But let's talk about the ones that have been crushing and that hurt. You know, I'm sure there's a few for sure that we can.
I'll let you
discuss, but
it's going to be the amount of fights.
Going to be tough to top this one.
With the amount of fights you've been in, and of course, as you're getting a little bit up there, it's Russ, as you're getting towards your discount card at the movies. We know we'll give you a little bit of time to think on that, but definitely thank you again for tuning in, everyone. Thank you, Josie and others, for the comments, and stay tuned, of course, for more in the coming weeks. Bonsoir, Russ.
Our thoughts with the people in Ukraine.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye-bye.